Hello, and welcome to another episode of 60 Minutes With. I'm your host, Crystal Petrie. On this week's podcast, we are going to learn about social media. And if you have a small business, if you are an entrepreneur, a medium-sized business, even a large business, nonprofit, for-profit, you need to watch this podcast because Megan Ferguson is going to teach all of us how to use social media and how to use it in a way that it benefits us and our business and not hurt it. So welcome to the podcast, Megan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on. Now, you are in Arizona. How's the weather out there?
Oh, it's really nice. And I'm sorry for anyone who's not here because I know it's pretty cold elsewhere, but it's only like 54 here. So we're surviving.
That is good weather. That is great weather. So I'm so glad that you agreed to be on the podcast, and we're going to talk about social media. I feel like the world is on social media. Of course, not everyone is on there, but the majority of people are on social media. And I don't know if they properly or correctly know how to use it, at least for the business side of it. So you are going to educate myself and my audience on how to use social media in a way that it benefits us. My first question, of course, is what is social media?
Yeah, I mean, wow, that's a grand question. But if I were to explain it to like a 5-year-old, for example,
Yes.
I would say social media is like a big playground, but on the internet. A big playground where people can talk, share pictures, play games with their friends. It's like a fun place where you can see what your friends are doing. And then as you develop interests in life, you can follow information about those interests and see updates on the things that you like.
Okay, that's an excellent that's an excellent definition of social media. What is the point of social media, especially for businesses?
Yeah, people have their own unique responses to this, but for businesses in particular, which is what I use social media primarily for, it's typically to gain visibility, attract more customers, and use it as a way to convert more business.
How do people use social media in an incorrect way?
In an incorrect way, there's a lot of potential ways to go wrong, but what I typically see happen the most with businesses is inconsistency. And that entails, if they fall off the boat and they don't post for a month or so, now it's harder to get engagement. You have to work harder to revive your page and get activity happening on it again. And then another mistake I frequently see is what I call the post and ghost. So they put up their content and then they think, all right, I could check that off the list and it's going to go get seen by the right people. But in order for your posts to be seen by the right people, you have to engage with that audience as well. If you want comments to happen on your page, you have to go out and comment on other pages. So a lot of the times people, they just post, but you don't see a lot of engagement, but that's usually because they're not going out into those spaces, finding those groups, following the hashtags that are relevant to their niche or their target audience, and they're not engaging or responding to comments at the very least.
So with social media, it's in the title, you really do have to be social.
Yeah, you do. And which can be tough for antisocial people or, introverts in general. But it really is, that's what it's all about. If you're a business in general, you just have to promote yourself. It's just like everything. People aren't going to just show up at your door and start buying from you. You have to go out there and put yourself out there. So everything's digital these days. And that's why social media is the most effective way and easiest way to get that done.
I know you were saying that people will post and then they don't post for like a month or two, then it's hard to get engagement again. How often should someone post on their social media for their business?
Yeah, it often depends on what you're using it for. But in business, I like to say at least 3 times a week. I consider that kind of the minimum to stay both effective and consistent, and to make sure that your efforts put on it are worthwhile. But on a personal level, I guess that's totally up to you. You could do whatever you want. I guess for the sake of not annoying your family and friends, maybe less than 3 times a day, but that's up to you. But on a business side, I always recommend at least 3 times a week.
Can someone have a personal and business page like completely separate? Or in today's day and time, does it all just mesh together?
No, you can definitely keep those two things separate. Most of the platforms have privacy features too. So if you run a business and you have a page for that brand, but you want to still have your personal page, and this is how I operate too, but you have your personal page because you still want to stay in touch with your friends and family and whatnot, and you could keep that all private, your personal pages, if you would like. But with business owners, I do recommend them to try and get their face out there because, the owner of the business is the front-facing person. It's often your point of contact, and it's good for brand visibility just because people tend to remember faces and names more than they do your logo or your business name, for example. It's kind of just like networking, but on an online digital format. But yes, you can set up a Facebook business page, for example, or a LinkedIn company page as opposed to your personal LinkedIn page. And then even with Instagram, they have a business feature. So you can make your profile a business feature and you get different stats, and they treat it a little bit differently.
Do you recommend businesses and personal just kind of meshing together? Because I'm starting to see that a lot, maybe more on the small business side, where the company has their business information on there. They also just put their personal information on there as well. Is that something that you would recommend businesses do, or do you think they need to keep the separate pages?
It depends on the person, and as a business owner, what do you want to do? If you're going to outsource your social media and have people handling the professional side for you, then do that and keep it separate if that's how you find your peace of mind. But I typically do recommend a little bit of both and meshing that in together, typically because an entrepreneur or a business owner or even a marketing manager will have contacts that they've met in their professional career that they're connected with as Facebook friends, or they follow them on Instagram or whatever the case may be. And so it is important to use that. If you already have a following going there, you can share updates from your business page to your personal page and mix things up a little bit that way. So there's always a way to find the balance that you're looking for. There's privacy settings and notification settings, so you can really customize it to what you want. But I typically recommend a little bit of both just because you tend to have those networks, so you might as well utilize them and share personal career updates with your personal network because they like to see that.
Can a business be successful and not be on social media?
Yes, it does happen. In this day and age, it's rare, but it's not impossible. For example, if social media just isn't where you get your business, or if you're lucky and you're not trying to get new business, then that's fine. But almost every type of business, I would say, needs to have at least a Google My Business page, which is kind of just your online listing so people can find you on the internet. Mm-hmm. Or a Facebook business page can accomplish the same thing, but not everyone gets customers directly from social media. But the important thing is that it plays a big part in your overall brand awareness. So a lack of social media does make it harder for people to keep you top of mind or reach out to you if you're offering a service that only comes around once every 10 years, that somebody is going to need. It's still important to stay top of mind and use your social media so that they know who to call, or they they know a guy for this when they come across that.
I feel like, and you can, let me know what you think. I feel like that social media, has replaced the yellow pages. I don't know if you remember the phone book, the yellow pages, but whenever like you wanted to contact someone or look someone up, people would look in the yellow pages. Now, I feel like if someone wants to find someone or find a service, they go straight to social media now.
That's very true. And personally, that's how I operate. Like when I'm looking for a vendor or whatever the case is, I often go to social media and I check out their profiles. But, some people will just Google them. But even if you Google them, you're going to go to their website and see what their brand's all about and eventually get led to their social media pages. So it's important to have, at the bare minimum, have that set up so that people know you're operating and you didn't go out of business, for example.
Right. I was speaking with a woman a couple years ago, and she was talking about, and of course, this is just a pivot story really quick about social media, but she was talking about some guy liked her and was trying to take her out on a date. So she went to social media to try and find him and find out all about him. And he wasn't on there. And she said, Crystal, he's not on social media. Something must be wrong with him, right? And I feel like that's the world that we live in. That yes, you cannot be on social media and be successful. But if you are not on social media somewhere, people might assume something is wrong with you.
Yeah, it's true. And he could be brilliant. That could be his peace of mind. And he's like, I don't need any of that. And I'm doing just great without it.
Yeah.
And that's great. But yeah, I mean, it's different. I guess from a dating perspective, that can be very different and look at a lot of different ways. But it's funny because people have started looking at LinkedIn as a dating site now. Because they can see, does he have a career? Is it a stable situation? And they're reaching out to people that way, which LinkedIn is not supposed to be there for that. It's not, it's a professional network. So I don't know that people are responding to that well, but that's what I've heard at least is there's some of that happening.
That I've never heard that. I get it though. I completely get it. That's funny.
Yeah.
Tell us, what is LinkedIn used for? Of course, it's not used as a dating app, but what is that app used for?
It's typically, so it's a B2B platform. So people that are on there are typically focused on professional development. If you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, it's a good space for obtaining leads and sales and finding decision makers, because it has search features. Let's say you specifically work with HR managers of tech companies in Phoenix, Arizona. You can search those exact people and create lists of those people. And then, it's primarily too just a job search site. So it's a place to share your professional updates, any career developments, any certifications, and try and get the attention of, there's a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn using it to find the right people. So it's really good for all of the professional development, whatever that looks like for you.
How can, and I think this is like a great question, a juicy question. How can people get followers? I know on LinkedIn, they ask, follow me. On YouTube, it's, subscribe to my channel. How can people get followers and subscribers on their social media pages?
Yeah, so if you're a new page, a brand new page starting from scratch, the best place to start is to follow other accounts and think about accounts that are relevant to your niche. There's even like what they call meme accounts, which are like funny little pictures and almost comics related to your niche. So if there's a meme account related to what you do, follow those accounts, and then get yourself within the conversations that are happening around your niche or your interest. So another thing that typically actually works really well for businesses that they don't often think about is to leverage their competition. So it's a little sneaky, but there's no reason not to do it. But if you go onto your competitors' social media accounts, for example, and you're seeing they're getting a lot of engagement on their posts, well, their followers are more likely to follow you back because these are people who've already expressed that they have interest in the service that you have to offer. So, it can be, you could either follow them directly outright, or you can be subtle about it and like their comments on their posts, like their Instagram stories, or connect with them on LinkedIn or whatever that looks like. But that's typically a good way to make sure you're getting quality followers over quantity. Because, these days there's all these bot accounts and a lot of random just nonsense. And so you want to make sure your followers are quality ones as opposed to just having a whole bunch of them.
This one is a two-part question. What is engagement, and are engagement and following the same thing?
So they're different. And engagement is a more important metric. To me, it's the most important metric because engagement, when we look at analytics for our clients, for example, if engagement is high, that means that the posts that we're sharing are resonating with their target audience. It means that people actually like it, click like on it. And engagement basically counts as any sort of reaction. So that's a like, a comment, a love, or even a dislike. Well, they don't have that now. A share or a save. So if people are taking those actions on the post, those are people that, for a business, they're more likely to become customers. So when you see engagement happening, that's a good thing. The algorithms also favor accounts that have higher engagement. Whereas followers, it can be good just for numbers if you're a brand trying to get yourself out there, get partnerships, and you can advertise, we have this many followers. That's always a good thing, but it's not as telling as engagement is, because those followers could easily have been purchased, or they could be bots, or they could be people that are going to unfollow them after 2 days. So followers doesn't tell as much of the story as engagement does.
I did not know until you just said, educating me, that there is no dislike button anymore. I hadn't even realized that. When did they take that off, and why did they take it off, if you know?
Well, I guess I don't know for sure. The last time I checked, I didn't see it, but are you thinking Facebook?
I guess I was just thinking all the platforms. I know they don't have it on LinkedIn, but I don't think they ever had like a dislike button on LinkedIn.
No.
I know they definitely still have it on YouTube, where you can like the video or dislike the video.
Oh yeah, there's that on YouTube for sure.
Right. So Facebook, do they not have it on there? I don't think they do.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do.
I think people have been rallying for that for a while, but why add negativity? We don't need to.
It's true.
We only want happy things.
It's true, which can be a good thing or a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
So you spoke about paid engagement, paid followers, and you also spoke about bots. Can you explain those two things, please?
So there's a lot of services out there, because there's a lot of businesses who think I need Instagram followers, or I need to get to 10,000 followers in order to be relevant, or get to the next step of being paid by the platform too, like on YouTube, for example, getting paid. But with Instagram, for example, there are services where you can buy followers, but those tend to really mess up your account, and I don't recommend them. And typically when we take over a client's account who has bought followers previously, we have to do kind of a detox of the account and cleanse all of that out, because engagement is now going to be really low, because Instagram is cracking down on those things, and most of the platforms are. So I would advise against doing that when you can. I have yet to find like a legitimate source for that. We always try and grow our clients' accounts organically and go in and find those conversations and follow people and do things by humans as opposed to bots.
And what are bots?
So you'll see them on Instagram, for example, and you'll kind of know right away because they're typically spammy. But nowadays, there's a lot of like crypto focused bots, people who are advertising like financial coaches and things like that. So you'll see comments on a post that are not relevant to the post at all. And it'll be something about like, you know, Coach Crystal got me $5,000 in 5 minutes. And it's usually a bunch of like fire emojis and a mixture of weird emojis. There's often like grammatical errors. And then if you go to the page, it's usually like a very nice photo of that they probably are using someone's identity. A lot of bots will hack a personal page and use your profile picture and then go spam other people with it. So you got to watch out for those things, but they're pretty recognizable for the most part.
Now back to the engagement piece. How do people get engagement? How do businesses get other people to like their content, to love their content, or to even make comments on their content?
The best way to get engagement on your posts is by literally telling people to. So what that looks like is ending your captions with a question, for example. Something that encourages people to comment below, or you can instruct them, comment below your thoughts on this, or you give them the next step, which can be share with a friend who knows or who needs this, save this post for future use. Those are all good ones. Most of the platforms have cracked down on people saying things like this if you agree. So try to avoid that. But when you're creating value and you're sharing a post, and it's a good post that's educating somebody or you know, entertaining or inspiring or whatever the case may be, you know, you can have the freedom to say like, share this with somebody or save this for future use. Because when people are on social media as it is, their attention spans have shrunk further than they typically are throughout the rest of the day. And so you have to tell people exactly what you want them to do with the piece of information that you're giving them.
How can people determine what kind of content to put on their social media? I mean, should they put more pictures on there, text-based information, videos? How do you know what is the right content?
So that's a tough one because the platforms want you to use a mix. They want you to try all kinds of different formulas, but I would think about the audience that's on the platform and what they're using it for. So on Instagram, people are typically looking for visual content. People on LinkedIn are looking for jobs or business updates, but usually when we make content for clients, we still will share it to all of their accounts because the post is usually still relevant across all of the channels. And there usually isn't a whole lot of reason to exclude it from one, but post it on this one, for example. It usually makes sense to share it to all. But yeah, I mean, videos are great. Carousels are great. Static posts are great. But what I would do is pay attention to your analytics. So try those things out. And then after a month or so, you'll see some data on what performed the best. And you can do more of that the next month, for example.
When you say carousel, what exactly is that?
So the carousels, those are common on Instagram, and it's multiple photos. And when you go on Instagram, it only shows you one at a time. So you have to scroll to see the rest of the photos. And if you post that same post on Facebook, it's still technically a carousel, but it's formatted so in a block, so you could see it all laid out. But on Instagram, you have to actually go swipe to see the next thing. So carousels are great posts for Instagram if you're trying to break down a lot of information, for example, or if you had a blog post, let's say, and the blog post is 5 reasons why this is great. And you could have, you know, the hook as the first frame, 5 reasons why this is great, swipe to see more. And then the person has to take the next step. They have to interact with the post to see number 1, number 2. So those are good because it's causing people to take action on the post, and it's efficient for, you know, putting a lot of information together, but in one place. And people like to save those too.
Okay. I know I'm not going to assume that everyone has, but I feel like the majority of the world has heard the term going viral. What does that term mean?
Yeah, that term has evolved a lot, and I feel like I don't hear it as often now as I used to. But basically a viral post is one that has created other conversations, or it's been shared by other accounts. Because when you share a post, that post is now exposed to all of the followers on that page. And then somebody else shares it, and now all of their followers see it, and vice versa. And it keeps going on and just building up. So when the visibility of it just keeps multiplying and multiplying and increasing to a point where you can't really keep track of the notifications on it anymore, that's kind of what a viral post is, especially if it gets picked up by like a larger account or a news, like a local news station's Facebook account, for example. Or if it's shared in a way where people start seeing it more than once and people start having conversations about it outside of social media, or say, did you see this thing? That's typically what viral is defined by.
Okay. How many social media platforms should a small business have, a medium-sized business, and a large business have?
It doesn't really differ for how the size of the business. Okay. I'd say 3 is typically a good number. And I say that because, you know, there's like 3 basically major platforms that a business should be on, but they also at the same time don't have to be on all of them. So I say, like, choose the one that as a business your audience is most active on, and prioritize that, and definitely get set up there. And then at the minimum have, you know, a Facebook business page, a LinkedIn company page, just for those extra layers of visibility and credibility, because having those definitely helps legitimize the business and the brand. And then, yeah, the third can be just where you think your audience is hanging out, where you think you're going to find benefit. And luckily there's scheduling tools that make it easy to schedule to all of those at the same time.
Do you think, I know you said that it doesn't matter the size of the company. What about what the company is producing, like service-based companies or product-based companies? Are there specific platforms that those companies should be on, or should everyone kind of do the Instagram, the Facebook business, and then like an optional third?
So let's say you're a CPA or a tax accounting firm. You don't necessarily have to be on Instagram in that case, but I would recommend being on Facebook and LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's going to be where people are looking for help in that area, or they'll have questions on that topic that you could answer for them. But Instagram, not necessarily. You know, it'd be good if you are trying to recruit and trying to create like a good brand image, and you want more millennials or Gen Zers working at your company, then you can create like an Instagram that reflects your company culture and share photos of the latest potluck or whatever that looks like. But if you're selling products, I typically do recommend Facebook and Instagram because you can run ads on those products. You can use, so Meta Business Suite is the platform which you run advertisements, Facebook advertisements for. And Facebook and Instagram, they're owned now by Meta. They're both under the same branch. Mm-hmm. So a lot of Instagram's features are linked to Facebook. So when you have a Facebook page, it makes sense to have an Instagram that links to that Facebook business page. And you can run retargeting ads. You can, if you're selling a new piece of clothing, for example, on Instagram, you can seek out influencers who will feature that piece of clothing. You can run ads, and people do use Instagram for shopping pretty frequently. I've done it. I've been guilty because sometimes the ads are just so good. But Facebook and Instagram, if you're selling a product that you want to sell to, whatever the audience is, then those are good spaces to be in.
My next question, and maybe you have already partially answered it, which social media platform is the best platform for making money? Would that be Instagram because of the ads?
Yeah. So Facebook and Instagram ads tend to be one of the most affordable forms of online advertising too. It always depends, though. It depends on your competition. It depends what you're selling, because sometimes Google ads play a bigger role in that. And I'm not an ads expert either. I have someone on my team for that because I tried to learn, the whole ads thing. And I decided I'd rather somebody who's already a pro at this handle this, because it's a whole science. So if you want to use Facebook ads, I definitely recommend getting help with that. Because they know the strategies and the best way to go about that. But yeah, I mean, as far as making money, it just depends. It depends where your audience is at. If you're a B2B audience and you need to, get in touch with a decision maker who's going to sign a contract with you, then LinkedIn's the space to make money and do that and make that happen.
Let's talk about you and your work with social media for a bit. How long have you worked in the social media space?
It's been about like 12 years now, and it's changed a lot since then. It used to be so easy. It's not anymore.
And why, or maybe how, did you get into the social media space?
Yeah, I've always been a writer at heart. I started in journalism, like in college, and then I did sports marketing and worked for marketing agencies and whatnot. And during that experience, I often had to take over the social media accounts for some big name clients too. So I got that really good experience. And then when I started my business, I kind of went through an exercise where I thought about what am I good at and what do I enjoy doing and want to continue doing, to where, it doesn't feel like work. It's something I could be happy doing. And for me, that's continuing with those creative writing opportunities, creating out of the box content and marketing strategies. And so that packaged into social media management, that's what made the most sense. And I could see the difference that it makes for businesses. Because really it's an online platform just full of opportunity. And so it was rewarding for me to know that I could keep businesses relevant online and manage their presence in a way that's going to help them get results. So that's kind of how I fell into social media, unintentionally, but it all kind of came together and made a lot of sense. And, now that's what we do, because I tried doing everything in marketing. I tried delivering like SEO and all of that stuff. And it's such a big world. One person can't do it all. So that's why I've got really good referral partners to, send people to if they need a website or anything like that. But I try to stick to social media now as best as I can.
What would you say? You say you started out about 12 years ago. What would you say are a few of the biggest changes that you have seen from 12 years ago until now in social media?
Yeah, the rise of video for sure, because it used to be, you know, Facebook used to be the place to just share updates and share like random thoughts, to where when I look at, I don't know about you, but when I look at my posts from 12 years ago, for whatever reason, Facebook reminds me of them. And I'm like, why did I say, like, that is so embarrassing. Delete that. It's just, you know, like, it's a different space now. And those types of things just aren't as relevant on social media anymore. And so I feel like the biggest pivot has been just the fact that social media is used more now as a professional tool. It's used for advertisements and business. And of course, you know, all the platforms have found every opportunity to make money.
Yes.
And so that's what it's turned more into, as opposed to being a space where you could, you know, say, hi, I'm online for the next 2 hours. Let's chat. Like, or I'm going to the mall today. Who wants to meet me? It's just not like that anymore. It's totally
the good old days.
Yeah, it was so simple.
It was. It was. Now, if someone would like to reach out to you for your social media management services, or any of the work that you do in social media, how would they be able to contact you?
Yeah, so my company's name is Backcourt Marketing, backcourt like on a basketball team, because we are here to defend your brand, assist you, and help you score. So that's where the name comes from.
I love it.
But yeah, if you go to backcourtmarketing.com, or you can email me at team@backcourtmarketing.com, TEAM. And then, of course, we're on social media. So
yeah,
search for Backcourt Marketing on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You could find us there.
Perfect. Perfect. What is your intention in the social media space?
Yeah, mine, and you know, it's evolved over the years, but fundamentally, it's always been to just use it for good and help businesses grow on it. Because on a personal level, social media can get exhausting. It can be something that you need a break from. It can have negative connotations. And so I want to keep it a good space. I try to spread more positivity on it and use it for the power that it has for businesses. It's a place where you can make the multiple touch points that you need to make with people before they convert, before they become a customer. It's a place where you can stay top of mind. It's a place you could share positive news, business growth, accomplishments, announcements, anything that makes you happy. And so that's what my intention has fundamentally been over the years, is to try to, you know, make it a positive space. Because a lot of business owners and a lot of marketers too, they know that they need to be on social media, but they personally just don't like it. They don't want to manage it. They don't want to be on it themselves. And so that's what we step in for, is to educate them. Like, yeah, I get it. I totally do. But, you know, here's the opportunity that's out there, and here's how you can use it to, you know, create results that you're going to be happy about.
Okay. If someone is watching this podcast and you have sold them on the benefits of social media, which platform would you say is the very first one that they need to be on to help grow their business?
Yeah, again, that one depends. It depends on their target audience. So if they're using it for business, you know, what platform is their audience hanging out on? Are they trying to sell a product? I'll definitely set them up as a Facebook business page. Definitely set them up as a LinkedIn company page. Those are like the two. And it's very easy to set those up too. If you just go, there's an option to create a page. It takes like 10 minutes max. The key is to just fill out the information as completely as you can. So it has prompts in places. And on LinkedIn, for example, it'll tell you like 75% complete, fill in this info to be more complete. But the more complete your page is and the more info that's on it, the more people will see it.
When you say target audience, what does that mean?
So who are you trying to sell to? Who's the decision maker? Are you selling online? Are you selling fitness products online to men or women? Are you locally based? Are you I keep saying tax accounting firm because maybe it's tax season, so it's top of my mind. But you know, are you a CPA that works with Arizona companies in particular? You know, it depends.
Okay. Are there some definite do not post this? And are there some definite please post this on your social media platforms?
A little bit, yes and no. So, you know, I'll state the obvious, I guess, with do not post is to just don't be stupid, you know, don't be an idiot, don't ruin your career. You know, if you work with sponsors, for example, like probably don't mention their competitors or wear their competitors' clothing or whatever that looks like. But as far as don'ts, you know, just think about what would you want to see in a professional brand and try to emulate that. Like, don't do anything that if you saw it, it would be a turn off to you. And then as far as do's, I always, for almost every business type of business we've worked with, I always recommend doing a introduction of yourself. So it's very simple. For example, when we start someone out on LinkedIn and they want to get in front of a certain audience, one of the first posts we make for them is just a simple, like if it's their headshot or a branding photo shoot they did. And it's a, hey, for those who I haven't connected with in a while, or some of my new followers on here, here's a little bit about me. Here's what I've been up to the last couple of years. And here's how you can get in touch with me. And those posts always do really well. They always get a lot of engagement, a lot of comments. If you give your calendar link, for example, people will come back and they'll schedule a meeting with you to catch up. And there's no reason to not do that on like a quarterly basis if you want, especially if your page is growing and you're getting new followers and you're working on your social media. Those just like very basic introductory posts about who we are, what we do, those always do well. And they're great reminders for people.
Okay. Are there some myths about social media out there that is probably not true, but people think that they are?
Yeah, I see those a lot. The biggest myth that I encounter just with business in general is that it's going to get you instant results. So it's not going to get you instant results. It's all part of a long-term strategy. It's part of building your brand. Followers aren't going to immediately come pouring to your page the minute you open up a new profile. It takes time. Another common myth is people think they have to be on every single platform, and that's definitely not true. I mean, there's some that, you know, might start fizzling out, and why waste your time? If you're, again, a tax accountant or something, and you're wondering, oh, well, TikTok's so popular right now, do I need to be on that? No, let's not waste our time doing that. You know, and then another common myth I see is people think that they have to post like a whole bunch of times a day, multiple times a day in order for their page to grow. And that's not necessarily the case. It's more so about being consistent.
Okay. And what are some truths about social media?
I think the biggest truth about social media is I really think it's here to stay. So social media, I mean, it's been around like almost 15 years now. Actually, no, longer than that, like 20 something. I don't know. But it's here to stay.
Yes.
And the platforms might come and go. There's platforms that might fizzle out and lose popularity. But the concept of social media is always going to be around, and there's always going to be a space for people to do what they're trying to do there. Another truth I'd say about social media is just quality over quantity again. It's not about how many followers. It's not about, you know, getting 1 million comments on the post. It's about reaching the right people, finding your audience and speaking to them.
Let's talk about some social media platforms, and you can explain to us like what is the purpose of those platforms. The first one, let's talk about TikTok. What is the purpose of that, and how can you use that properly?
I see TikTok as, for me, it's where I can like scroll through the feed and let my mind kind of go numb for a little bit and just receive some entertainment and see silly videos and laugh and move on with my day. That's how I use it personally. But in a business sense, if you're trying to sell to the Gen Z audience, then that's a good place to do that because that's where they're hanging out. They like TikTok more than Instagram. Instagram's more for millennial population. And so if you're designing a product that your audience is Gen Zers and you want to sell to them, being active on TikTok is the place to do that. But it's a video platform. It's all video creation. It's short form. It's quick. It's, again, I find it mind numbing. And so I try to avoid it because I don't want to develop TikTok brain and just lose focus on it. I've seen it happen. So I try to focus on longer form things so that my brain still works.
Yeah. It's so funny because it's true.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Twitter? What is Twitter and what is the purpose of that? How can you use that correctly?
Yeah, Twitter's it's been interesting lately. Originally, what it was for was conversations. It was mostly a professional space for reporters, journalists, for sharing news updates, for sharing sporting events, for sharing if there was timely information happening that you couldn't watch it on the news. For example, you could go to Twitter and find out a live activity of what's going on there. And nowadays it's kind of up in the air. It's changed. And then Threads came along. So people are kind of hybrid using both of them. And so it's tough to say, like, what is Twitter good for right now? It's people use it for their own different reasons at this point. I have been avoiding Twitter because I feel like, and maybe I don't spend enough time for the feed to understand what I want. So it's not showing me what I want, but I see a lot of negativity on Twitter. Every time I log on there, it's just complaints. It's just, I hate this. This is stupid, blah, blah, blah. It's all negative. So I try to keep that space out of my personal life. But yeah, Twitter, at this point, if you are trying to become a thought leader or share just very short tidbits of information, because it has a character limit, it's short little text posts. If you want to share like a thread of information, but piece it all together and have somebody follow along, that's what Twitter's good for. But yeah, again, it's evolving so much right now. It could be totally different tomorrow, what it's all about.
And I just want to make the correction. It used to be Twitter. Now it's called X.
That's right. I know.
Known as Twitter.
And I haven't acclimated to that. And everyone I know still says Twitter.
Yes.
Nobody, it made sense because you could tweet. A tweet was an action, but what do you call it now? It's just an X post. I don't know.
It makes no sense, but just want to make sure, since we're talking about social media, we gotta make sure we get our terms correct. So I think the newest one, I feel like a new social media comes out maybe every week, but the newest one out is Threads. So tell us about Threads and how to correctly use that platform.
So Threads is kind of like Twitter's cousin, or like Twitter's sister-in-law. It's also short form posts that are mostly text. But it's a place for quick updates, sharing little thoughts, sharing announcements, and things like that. As far as the point of it, I think that it's so new still that people are still figuring it out. It's been lately showing itself as a conversation space for people to get connected with others and to put a thought out there and kind of see who relates to it. I've seen a lot of like larger brands and big businesses use it as a place to just share funny little tidbits and share kind of their brand personality in a way. But I think it's still figuring itself out, because Threads, unlike Twitter, Twitter shows you posts, X shows you posts of accounts that you follow. But Threads is showing all kinds of posts. It's followers and non-followers. You're seeing stuff that they think is curated to you. And it's still figuring that out. I can tell, because when I go on there, I see irrelevant stuff still. But it's, you know, there's no real rule or proper guide to using Threads, other than, you know, seeing what people like on there, responding to inquiries and questions and things that people post. It's kind of random really right now. It feels a little unhinged in a way. It's a little like a free-for-all, and it's still coming together, because they haven't added yet features like direct messaging or anything like that. You can do videos. You can share longer videos on Threads than you can on Twitter, X. And so they do have that feature. And the character count also is a little bit longer than the one on X.
And what about a blog? What is a blog, and how can people correctly use that?
I love a good blog. I love a good blog. The power of a blog is really huge. I think people say that they're outdated, and I think that's a myth. Blogs have been like the longest running, most reliable form of content marketing. People wouldn't still be blogging if they didn't help. It's basically a way you can create articles that are relevant to your audience. Think about your frequently asked questions that you get, and writing posts that answer those questions, because people are Googling those questions. And when you have a blog post on your website about that question, it can show up in the feed in the Google search results, and then people discover your business that way. So it's a good SEO tool, a search engine optimization tool, where you put keywords, you lace them with lots of keywords, you link to other sources or other sites, and you help drive traffic to your website that way. Because when people are searching keywords and you have an article about that keyword or answering a question about it, people can discover you that way. And, you know, you can monetize them. You can use blogs as an advertising tool. And it's just good for credibility as a whole. It's a good space to show your knowledge and you know, show you're the thought leader on a particular topic.
Now, let's talk about hashtags. I feel like we see them across all social media platforms. What are hashtags, and how can you properly use those?
Hashtags are a fun thing that their purpose has evolved again over the years. Social media, by the way, as a whole changes just about every 5 minutes. So, you know, like by the time people see this, I could be totally wrong and things could be totally different and I'll look real stupid. But, you know, as it stands right now, hashtags, they're not outdated. They do help. They're not the most important thing in the world, though. When it comes to Instagram, hashtags are a way for you to discover posts that you're interested in. So if you're looking for organic food recipes, you could search hashtag organic food recipes. And if, let's say, you're an organic food blogger and you're trying to get people to your website, use the Instagram hashtag organic food, organic recipes, hashtag organic, things like that. Those draw people to your posts, and it increases the likelihood that your post will show up in what's called the Discover feed on Instagram, which is basically a curated feed of what the algorithm thinks you're currently interested in based on your behavior. So if you've been looking at hashtags or interacting with posts that use the hashtag organic, then it's thinking, oh, you eat organic food, and we're going to start showing organic content, organic food content in your feed. So they're helpful for that. Facebook, they don't do a whole lot. They're I typically don't use hashtags on Facebook. They don't make a whole lot of a difference. On Twitter, X, that's actually what kind of started all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that's kind of fallen. The hashtags aren't as important on there anymore. LinkedIn, they're becoming more important on LinkedIn because there's a feed now on the left that shows conversations about hashtags, and you could find people who are talking about that topic. If you're looking for an accountant in Arizona, you could search that hashtag and find people that are talking about that.
I know one thing about hashtags that I just do not like is I will be searching a particular topic, and like people will put hashtags that are not even relevant to their content just to draw people to the content. And I feel like you're lying. Why are you doing this? And then
Yeah.
it's let down when, you know, you type in your topic, you go to, you know, a post and it's not even about the topic.
I think I know exactly what's happening there. A lot of people who post frequently to social media, they have a list on their phone. They have like a note on their phone, and it's a big block of hashtags, and but they're not switching out the hashtags. They're just copying and pasting them. I see that happen a lot, but it's important to switch them out. And especially if you're posting around a holiday, for example, utilize that holiday. Like if it's National Peanut Butter Day, like, and that's what your business, you're a bakery that makes peanut butter pies, like use that holiday and use that hashtag because you will get extra reach that day.
Right, right. What do you think is the fastest growing social media platform?
That one's hard to answer because that always changes again. And where we're at in this given moment, I am going to say it's TikTok because historically, recently, over the last few years, a couple years, just the amount of new users that are pouring in there are still very high on a daily basis, and people are still signing up for it. I'm going to say that, but you know, it could be a different answer tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple more questions for you, Megan, and then I'll let you go. But you have been amazing. Thank you so much
Thank you
for all of the information that you have given me and my audience. Can you explain to me what is a social media campaign?
Yeah, I would describe a campaign as a series of posts that are serving any specific type of purpose. If you're running advertisements, then any ad campaign is a campaign. Any push that you put out there, anything that's tracking and getting results. And then on an organic side, so an organic social media, by the way, is just any post that isn't a paid post, anything that you're not paying for. So just a regular post, and there are campaigns you can do that way. It could be an announcement, a launch, a contest or a giveaway, a feature of one of your services, and you're just going on a campaign. You're like, this week I'm going to talk about this topic 3 times, and that's my campaign. You know, that's typically what I describe as a campaign. Anytime it's serving a purpose, and you want it to accomplish something, that's how I describe that.
Can any content that you post technically be a campaign?
Yeah, I mean, if it's serving a purpose, which most of the time when you post, you're doing it for some reason or another. Right. But if it's kind of just a one-off, you know, by the way, I'm here at the store today, you know, I wouldn't call that a campaign. But if you're investing in social media, like you're a business that's investing your time, or you're investing money and having somebody run it for you, all of that is campaign oriented because it's all serving a purpose. Every single post needs to, I mean, at least with everyone we work with, every post that we make serves a specific goal. It serves a purpose, whether it's enhancing brand credibility or increasing brand awareness or increasing engagement, or it's telling people directly, come into the store today. It's all serving some sort of purpose.
Okay. You have been in the social media space and working in the social media space for over a decade. As we get ready to say goodbye, what would be the most important piece of advice to businesses as it pertains to social media use?
I would say don't get overwhelmed because it can be very overwhelming and there's a lot of information about social media and there's a lot of gurus on the internet who are telling you do this but not this, and there's a lot of conflicting information. So I would say just stick to your fundamentals. My advice would be, decide for yourself, answer the question, what is my goal with social media? What do I want it to do for my business? And then, just follow along accordingly. Anything you do, decide if it's contributing to that or not. And if it's not, don't waste your time. But that's what it all needs to circle back to, is just choose how it fits into your marketing strategy. What goal is it accomplishing? Is it for brand awareness? Is it for making sales? And then just develop your strategy around that one goal and try not to get overwhelmed by all of the do this but not that, and reels are good, no, reels are bad, because there's so much of that. There really is. So just focus on your business and what works for it.
Okay, and my final question for you, Megan, who do you think would make a great guest, or a guest with an S, on my podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
I will do that. Yeah, I've got 5 for you. So I'll quickly run through who they are. But, okay. I'll start with my good friend, Jen Testamark. She owns a creative branding and website design company. It's called Make Joy Studio. And it's a good name for her because she really does bring the joy to everybody that she works with. And she's got tons of knowledge about just what makes a good website and what makes a good brand. My second, I would say Allison Stein. So she's a financial advisor, a wealth management advisor, and she is my wealth management advisor. Very well trusted. I respect her a lot. She has a ton of knowledge on just things to do daily to make sure that you're in a good space. And she is up to date with the stock market, which everybody needs somebody who's good at that. My friend Greg Tomita, he is very experienced in startups, in the startup space. He's a consultant for founders and new businesses. He has a lot of interesting stories and experiences in the startup space, and with venture capital funding and marketing plans for them and all kinds of stuff. So he's a very interesting guy with a wealth of information. No, where am I at? 4, my fourth person, I'll say my wonderful project manager, actually, Leah Hall. So she's super well-versed in just business growth and operations and systems building, and also boundary building. She's been really good at helping me do all of that and helping me build my business in a way that I can be happy with it. I could scale it, but it's not going to drive me crazy and require all my time. Okay, and then I've got one more. So my friend Jocelyn Jones, she works with a luxury car repair and detailing business that's local here in Phoenix. Yeah. And I think, she has a really interesting perspective on just being in that space as a woman. And on top of that, she's a realtor too. So she could go both ways. She could talk about either of those things, but she's always very interesting every time I get to catch up with her.
Perfect. You are going to keep me in business.
Great.
Thank you so much again, Megan, for hopping on here and educating me and my audience about social media. I know you gave so much information and so many gems that whoever's watching this is going to be educated. And now the next step is on them. They just have to apply what you told us.
Yeah, and if they need help, they can reach out to me. I'm happy to help. But I really appreciate it. This was a really fun hour. You're awesome to work with, and I look forward to seeing this.
Thank you. Thank you. And before we go, let my audience know if they want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Email me at team@backcourtmarketing.com.
And thank you for tuning in and watching this podcast. You can get this podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.